morning, good afternoon, wherever you are, whenever you happen to be listening. I am so excited to welcome to the show Arleen Taveras. She is the owner of Insurance Licensing Services of America. That's a tongue twister. I didn't expect that to be such a tongue twister. But Arleen and I have kind of like floated in the same circles for a while, connected through Agency Nation a little bit here and there. And then I was lucky enough to get her to agree to come on the show today. So welcome, Arleen. How are you doing?
I am doing great, Olivia. I am so excited to be here with you, and I've enjoyed our pre-show talk, and I can't wait to dive into everything that we're going to dive into today.
Yes. I mean, I have learned so much about you already. I feel like we're old friends and that I can just come and visit you in the magical paradise that you're living in right now. So why don't you tell everybody where you are? Because I'm in Iowa, which is warm and sunny, but maybe not as warm and sunny and picturesque as where you are.
I think this place is the icing of all icing. This is Puerto Rico. We are in a town called Humacao, Puerto Rico, southeast of San Juan, and it's absolutely beautiful here. It's about 85 degrees every single day, 365 days of the year, ocean view, pretty sweet.
Yeah, definitely can't complain about that. So you are there with your husband, Ted, correct? So yeah. Basking in the glow of paradise alongside your best friend. But you know, what's that?
And working.
But working in paradise is a pretty good deal.
It sure is.
Yeah. So you guys have owned this company for a while, but I'd love to just get to know more about your family. We talked about one of your sons prior to getting on the call, which I feel like, sorry about the mower. I'm a little bit closer to meeting a celebrity now, but would love to know more about the kids that you guys have.
So we have 4, and we have 1 girl and 3 boys. The oldest is the girl, and she lives in Switzerland. She's lived there for about 18 years.
Wow.
We live in Switzerland. We get to go over there every opportunity that we can.
Yeah.
It's so gorgeous every single season. And then we have Nalicio, who is a musician. He's a sax player. And then we have Miguel. He's an engineer. And then we have Tony, who's the youngest and is also in Dallas with Miguel.
Oh my gosh. So all of them doing very different things.
Very different things. None of them in our business. They've all dabbled in the business.
Okay.
And Tony talk about it, he's like, yeah, that surplus line stuff just wasn't going to cut it for me. Surplus lines, tax filings was just not going to do it. And he says it in a Southern drawl because he's a little Southern boy.
Yeah. You know, and it's so funny how it's not for everybody, but you guys certainly have done a great job building a business on something that is a headache for a lot of people to try and find their way through. So I'm curious, like, what has your journey been like? How did you guys come up with this idea? Like, and what has that been like for you guys developing this business?
So it's been a great business, but obviously it's a business that a lot of people wouldn't even touch with a 10-foot pole. And the way that we started it was I used to work for Minette, which was then purchased by Aon. And I was working for Minette back in late 80s, like 89 through 96, which is when Aon purchased Minette. And I went to the College of Insurance, got my risk management degree, because I was working as an administrative assistant in the department. I was in my 20s in the risk consulting division. And I said, hey, what do I need to do to advance in this company? So I went and got my risk management degree. Shortly thereafter, a position opened up in licensing, and I moved into that spot. So I started doing licensing and regulatory compliance for the company for about 12 of our offices in the US and in Canada, and overseeing like surplus lines brokers and just getting all that knowledge. The interesting thing was that there was no one that had done my job before me. It was like I was just thrust into this role, had to learn it from scratch. Like when I first started doing it, I didn't know what a bond was. I didn't know you had to file the bond with the insurance department. Like it was just Greek to me. So fast forward to when Aon buys us, and by then I know the role very, very well. And I kept telling Ted, I think if we start a business in this sector, we can do really well. But the key is that we would have to automate like from day one, because there were a couple of services that were doing it, but they were banging out all of these applications on typewriters. Like, when we would acquire a new practice,
wow.
if you needed 300 to 400 new licenses for a team that you were bringing on, imagine having to do all of that on typewriters. So we decide to start the business, and Aon becomes our first client. So that was pretty sweet.
Yeah,
and yeah, that was pretty sweet. They became our first client, and we automated. That was the first thing that we did. And, automation back then, a very different version of what we have today.
Right.
But what we were able to do was just scan in all of the state's applications, which at that point were 8.5 by 14 paper, pink paper, green paper, yellow paper. All of those colored papers, by the way, were in New York. New York had all these different color paper.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
But we automated. It allowed us to start offering other license types that other services couldn't do because they were so busy with just the property and casualty and life and health. And so we were able to expand right away to adjuster, surplus lines, MGA, all of that from the very beginning. And then we just kept expanding the services till now we have like over 50 services.
Oh my gosh.
Including surplus lines, tax filings.
Yeah. And how many employees do you guys have now?
We have 55 in Texas.
Wow. Which is fantastic. I mean, and it's funny how you can take something like ingenuity is born out of like just that need that you can tell something's missing.
Yeah.
Like, we could unlock something here. And it's so funny when you mentioned the color paper, I immediately go back to like my early days in insurance and bonds, and that they would come to us on blue paper. And so we had to get multiple copies because we knew we'd have to put them through the typewriter. Somebody was going to mess it up. Like that, I'm like instantly back looking at this blue piece of paper and scrolling it into a typewriter. And I can tell you, like, I grew up learning to type on a typewriter. I am old enough without giving away my complete age. But by that point, it had been a long time since I used one. And I remember starting in this insurance office going, why is there a typewriter here? Like I was far enough removed from that at that point, but oh my gosh. Yeah. Isn't it funny to think how far technology has brought us?
Oh yeah. I mean, we had the bubble form. So we had to have the number 2 pencils. I think it was like Michigan had the bubble forms, Maryland, Alaska had triplicate forms. It was crazy. So, our employees now, when we tell them those stories, like the newer employees, they're like, heck no, like everything is in a computer system now. We directly interface with the insurance departments. We're like, you guys have it so good.
Yeah, you have no idea. I remember when they suddenly could use blue and black ink instead of just number 2 pencil. It was like, there were like these little revelations. It's so funny. Wow. I feel like I'm taking a trip way back to like, wow, it's so funny.
So far.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, in automation, obviously a huge key to you guys being able to be successful and scale the way that you've been able to. But yeah, it's funny to think about what automation was and now what it is, and then try and think about what it'll be 12 months from now.
Yes. Yeah. And it's automation coupled with innovation and querying who we're serving, right?
Yeah.
Because we just kept asking our clients, what is causing you so much pain? And that's how we started doing like annual returns with the Secretary of State back in like 1998. We had one client, and a friend, David Whitney, he said to me, I don't want to have to do these annual returns. Can you guys do it? And I said, we'll do it as soon as we can automate the process.
Yeah.
And it just kept building from there.
And I think that that's an important point, Arleen, that automation does not work if you can't build a good process.
Right.
And I think it can be a little bit tricky in this industry that we just want automation to do everything, but there is a lot of groundwork that goes into making sure that automation is going to do what it's supposed to do. You have to have those foundational processes really locked in, or you're probably not going to get the output that you want just because it can do it faster.
Yeah, it's funny. I want to laugh when you say that, the processes, because I'm a visionary.
Yeah.
I'm not a processor. So I'm always like, I just want it to work this way. I just want it to get to this point. And then behind me is this incredible team. And of course, Ted was the first one that automated everything. But, you know, they're the ones that are like the backbone, like, okay, and now in our managers and supervisors, I mean, there's processes for everything.
Yeah.
You know, every single one of our departments has all these processes, all these guides. And I'm like, holy cow, like our people have to know all that and follow all those steps. I'm like, lucky it's not me.
Yeah. You'd be like, no, I think these two things will work. It'll work. I want this. This will work, right? So you two were the first employees. I take it you and Ted were the originators, obviously, of the business. Do you remember when you hired your first employee and what that experience was like?
Oh, yes. Actually, our very first employee was a friend. And we were friends beforehand. And it was interesting because I kind of felt like that the friendship kind of started going away because it was more like an employee business, you know, employer role. Mm-hmm. And later on, when we moved the business from where we first started it, which was Magnolia, Texas, and we moved to Groesbeck, she didn't go with the business. She didn't move when we moved. And it was like, she said, this is great because we get the friendship back.
Oh, yeah, that is tough. Yeah. And
you're learning as a new employer, you know, so that was our first.
Yeah, absolutely. So now Anne was your first client or one of your first clients?
Anne was our very, very first client.
And you used to work there. So I think there's a lesson here in leaving gracefully, not burning bridges, keeping good relationships.
They were so wonderful. So here's what happened. Aon acquired Minette, which was the company that I worked for many years. Mm-hmm. And when they acquired us, I had every indication that I would get severed. You know, that we would, that I would get a termination package. And so when everyone was getting their severance packages, I called my friend who was the regional general counsel, and I said, hey, where's my severance package? And she said, call up and find out what's going on. And so I talked to the person that I'm then at that point reporting to in Chicago, and they said, no, we've loved working with you. We want you to stay on board. And I was like, I already made my plans, you know, because we have been talking about starting this business for a couple of years. And so they said, we want you to stay on board. And I said, well, I gotta go. And so I ended up resigning, which was so hard, right? Because I loved corporate America. I loved the company. I loved the security that I had, that I had. And I was like, wow, I'm giving up all of this for the unknown, right? Yeah. So it was very tough. But by the same token, they gave me so much to start with, like my first desk, which is my desk still in Texas. It's this huge, big mahogany desk, my credenza, my filing cabinet, my fax machine, my printers. They gave all of that to me.
Oh, how nice.
Yeah. So it was a really wonderful situation.
Yeah. And obviously it worked out well in the end for everybody. Yeah. Which is, you know, I always, more and more I realize, like, things are going to be okay. Things turn out the way that they're supposed to. And you guys have really done such a great job of building this business. And when you look at, the last, however, what year did you guys start this? 1997. So so yeah. So what do you think is one of the biggest lessons you've learned as you've gone through this process?
The biggest lesson is that nothing is guaranteed, right? Because, we're used to always hearing, oh, if you get through the 5-year hump, you're in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
If you get to the 10-year, you're good. You're on automatic. And boom, we got to 11 years and it was the Great Recession.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We ended up losing 70% of our income from 2008, 2010, because we had so many clients that went out of business, so many clients that couldn't afford our services, a lot of mergers, 70%. And, what allowed us to survive was the fact that we as a business had zero debt. Personally, we had no mortgage. We had paid off our mortgage. We had really hunkered down before that on paying off our mortgage. So Ted and I went almost a year and a half without salary. And we drastically cut expenses. And the way that we cut expenses was because our employees came to us with a list. This is what we have to cut. As tough as it was for me, like some of the things, like we used to pay 100% daycare no matter how many children our employees had. And they said, we can't do that. We can only pay for one child. And I mean, so many things that they put on the list, of course there were a lot of tears, right? Like it was just tough, cutting back hours so that on Fridays they got out early. Of course, when things get back normal and you're doing well, you want them to start working 40 hours again. They're like, no! It's those little things, but so many things that we took for granted, you recognize never to take for granted. So when COVID hit, we were able to pivot like immediately and talk about our team. We have some team members that have been with us 10, 15 years, close to 20 years. So they've gone through it all. Yeah. And so we're like, okay, we got to pivot. We don't know what's going to happen. And these are the steps that we're going to take as a team.
Yeah. So how has this pandemic impacted business? Has it been okay? Or, it seems it's so hard to gauge. Like you could read a million financial reports and news reports and it's still hard to understand, for me anyway.
So far for us, we have been doing great. We have, business is up. We actually, like the first week that we had lockdown, we decided to start hosting a weekly compliance session for the industry.
Nice.
And we had so many regulators that come on as guest panelists, and that's been amazing.
Yeah.
We kind of did it because first, I'm very social. So I knew I wasn't going to be able to go to conferences and I needed to see people. And so I was like, other people feel this way, right? Like we want to be able to see each other.
Yep.
So we started doing it for that. And also because we knew that people weren't going to have all the resources at their disposal that they normally would when they're in the office. So we said, you know what, we're going to talk about mergers and acquisitions, what you have to look out for, what you should look for in producer agreements. So we've had tremendous, valuable topics, and the reception that we've received, the feedback has been incredible. Yeah. And it just getting bigger and bigger, and the panelists that we have are just phenomenal.
Yeah. What a great way to continue building relationships in a time where it's really easy to miss out on that opportunity.
Yeah. I think also the other thing is, in the past, I think maybe regulators would have been reluctant to do something like this. But it's like now they're feeling like, no, we have to be there for our users, for the people that, you know, it's hard for them to contact us. Well, here we are. We're letting them know how COVID is affecting, you know, license applications or whatever, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, that's great. You know, and I have appreciated seeing how I know we've kind of been forced to step up in different ways, but you could retreat to a corner and wait for this to pass. But you know, the fact that you guys were able to get people lined up that were going to provide valuable insight to people in a time when they're really closed off from the world. And probably, yeah, if you had asked them a year ago, they would have been like, no, I'm not doing that. But now they've taken advantage of the opportunity.
You know, the other thing, Olivia, is I was just, I guess not surprised, but you know, there's of course a great portion of people that will also just freeze. They're just like glued to the TV and like, oh my gosh, you know, like this is terrible. And like, you know, like what's going to happen? And it's like, you can't be glued, you know, you got to like move. Like, I just think I get into survival mode. Like, what do I need to do? Like, what do I need to ensure that we're going to be doing okay?
Yeah. And that's it. I mean, and it's so true. You have two choices. You have inaction or you have action. And, you know, generally action is going to give you momentum. And I think that you are definitely seeing the byproduct of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is amazing. I love it.
Also action in working out. Like, you know, like you got to work out more because you don't want Rona taking over you.
Oh my gosh. The Corona 15. Oh. way too easy for that to happen.
Yep.
It is a little different being home all the time for me, you know. I'm like, oh, I can get to the kitchen really easily from here.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So who has had the biggest impact on you in your life? Like, who has really brought you along in your journey?
Wow. There's been several people that have been very impactful in my life.
Yeah.
I guess I would start early on. I'm so grateful for the things that my father did for me, because he always like instilled in me like this feeling like I could do anything, you know, that I could just do anything. He had us be well-rounded children. He had us he's an immigrant. My parents are Dominican. I'm Dominican.
Okay.
And so he immigrated to the United States like back in 1959, 1960. And with very little English knowledge, he had us going to piano, taking piano lessons, ballet, violin, taking us to the opera in New York, taking us to the Olympics, like all of these things. He really felt like that if he could invest in us, that we would be able to do anything. So he was really instrumental, you know, in this day and age where a lot of girls don't have that self-esteem, right?
Yeah.
I always had like that self-esteem, you know, like I could do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel very appreciative of that. Then when I went into my career, my first mentor was my boss back at Chemical Bank in the finance division, Edward Birkin. I was his assistant, and he trusted and taught me a lot of things that he was doing, like just software, Lotus 123. He promoted me to a junior accountant. So again, he like saw that I had this ability to really contribute to the department, and he put me there, you know, regardless of the fact that I had been an administrative assistant. And then when I went to Minette, I had two great mentors, Nancy Settergren and Ellen Pearl. They were my bosses, and they were just phenomenal ladies, are phenomenal ladies. Encouraged me to go to the College of Insurance, and Ellen just always kept mentoring me and pushing me to go further, and trusted in me to take on this leadership role at the company.
Wow. So many great people recognizing your potential along the way, pushing you to do bigger things.
Yeah. But it was also, you know, I was also like, if I saw them doing something, I was like, what are you doing? How can I help? Can I take that on even though it's not my role? You know, I want to be able to learn. And fact that it wasn't so much that I thought I was going to get something out of it. I just wanted to learn.
Right.
I just wanted
Curiosity.
to learn some new stuff. And definitely when I was then at Minette, I wanted to learn and I wanted to move up. Like, show me what I need to do to continue to move up.
Yeah.
Like, this is just a stepping stone where I'm at today.
Yeah. And I love hearing you say that, because I think sometimes we don't want to admit that. Like, this is a temporary spot. Like, for me, I've always internalized that as like, oh, that doesn't feel good to me to say that to somebody. But recognizing like, hey, I've got big plans, and like, you're confident and okay with it. Like, I love it, and I need to soak some of that up. I think it's great.
Oh, I was very vocal like about that. I was like, I know I'm doing this, but I want to move up. Like, what do I need to do to move up?
Yeah. Which I wish that more people like gave themselves permission to do that. Because I think it is very powerful in terms of being able to verbalize what your goals are. If you just, like, I write everything down. I'm very much a writer. I'm a journaler, like, constantly. But also being able to verbalize those and know that you were in a place with your own self that, like, you're like, no, this is what I'm doing, and not, but also knowing that you were with employers that were going to help you get to where it was that you wanted to be going.
I mean, and think about it. That happened to me twice in my career. Like, I've only had 2 jobs before I became an entrepreneur, but I was at Chemical Bank for 6 years and then Minette for another 6 or 7 years. Mm-hmm. And at Chemical Bank, I started there when I was 18. And the fact that I went from a secretary to being promoted to a junior accountant, mm-hmm. And then again in Minette as an administrative assistant to an assistant vice president.
Yeah.
It's just, so you have to verbalize it. You have to surround yourself by people that are good for you, that mentor you. And relationship is key. Like, my mentors were also my friends. Like, I had lunch with them. We went shopping. We visited each other. We were friends, but I had their backs and everything. Like, like if they had to work late, I'm going to work late with them, helping them and doing things that were not necessarily my role.
Right. But probably some of the biggest opportunities to learn something that you weren't going to get exposed to otherwise. So yeah, I mean, I think there's so much to be said about, relationships and opportunity. Not 2 things that you're going to come by naturally. You have to be willing to put in the work to have both of those things in your life.
Yeah.
I think.
And then I would fail if I didn't share that also one of my big mentors has been my husband, Ted.
Yeah.
Because all along our lives, he's a pusher, he's a reader, he's, taught me so much about just different music and reading and just self-improvement. So Tony Robbins, like he bought the tapes, cassettes back then, early in our lives, and just listening to it and just constantly being about, let's improve our lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it. Mm-hmm. So you've obviously put in a ton of work. You've invested your life into building this amazing business alongside Ted, and you now employ 50 people, and which is just amazing. I think like there's so much that goes into being the employer, and you're the caretaker of these people in a lot of ways.
Children.
Yeah. So it's just like, you've done so much in your career. How do we get more women to like take that step into leadership, to like make that? Because I think that there's a lot of hesitation there. I know that I felt it in my life, but how do we get them to take that next step to reach for it?
I think you have to have confidence in yourself and just like set out your goals and say that you can balance things, like find a support so that you can give it your all to your career and to your family life. Like, one of the things, I could be a little bit of a workaholic. So I used to put things in place so that I could balance my life, my personal life a little bit. And I did things like, okay, I am a volunteer reader at my son's school. Well, like when he was in third grade and fourth grade. So I used to have like every Wednesday, I knew I had to go in and read to the class. So I would put things into my schedule for my children and my family.
Yeah.
On Wednesdays, when Ted would go play basketball, I would allow our kids to just pick what food you want, what game we're going to play. And so, boom, that was their day to pick that. So, but I think you have to have those career goals, right? Because, come on, at the end, divorces are very common, right? Like 50% of marriages end up in divorce. So why going into a marriage or a relationship with women put their careers kind of like on the back burner, right? Like you have to give it your all, and so that you can have also that self-esteem and that, confidence in yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think confidence is a struggle, but yeah, like now raising a daughter has taught me a lot about what it means to have confidence and what it means to make sure that I'm instilling that in her as well.
Yeah. And just, constantly recognizing that you're able to do anything that a man can do. And, women bring just a lot of different perspective. We're very good at balancing work and personal, right?
Yeah.
So those are things that you're able to bring into the workplace. Like I know I had a female employee in our accounting department, and sometimes she could be like a little bit too much on the work side. And I would say to her, hey, you have to take out, like one time her husband had a flat tire in the middle of the road, and he called her. And she was like, well, what do you want me to do? I'm at work. And she's just like a mile away. And I was like, well, you have to go help him. I'm at work. And I'm like, you got to balance it. The other thing, Ted was also really good when we started our business. We had first worked in corporate life in New York City, where it's hard to find a good balance.
Yeah.
Because your commute, we had like nearly a 2-hour commute each way. So you're far away from your children. You don't get to participate in those extracurricular activities for your kids. You normally have, a mother, your mother helping out with the kids or a babysitter. And so when we moved to our small town to start our business, Ted was actually very good about that. He said, we will never miss a pep rally. We will never miss a track meet. And so we did the same thing with our team. We said to them, guys, you never get this time back. So that's so important to be there for the kids. We're like 3 minutes away from our elementary, our middle school, and our high school. So those are things that as business owners, you can bring and share with your employees. It's okay. We're all human beings first.
Yeah. Yeah. And we have multiple parts of our lives. We don't just have one thing. We have more than one mission in life.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you could go back and give your younger self a piece of advice, what would it be?
Not to hurry so much. Like, it's okay. Like, take it in stride, not to hurry so much. And, sometimes you don't know how your life, obviously you don't have a crystal ball to tell how your life is going to turn out. But I remember when I first started my career, because I was so young, I first started working full-time at 18.
Yeah.
So for many, many years, I never told people how old I was because I thought that it would be, that they would look down upon it. And so I was reluctant to share that, but it's okay. It's based on your knowledge, and you have this role because of what you brought to the table. They've already seen that potential in you. So own it. yeah, it's okay. I'm 22, but I'm smart. Don't use that as, anything against me. I'm who I am.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is, we can discount ourselves for so many different reasons, but yeah. And I remember, I don't struggle with the age thing anymore, but I remember when I first started out being like, oh gosh, it can be a struggle, or people assume that you don't know because you're a certain age. And yeah, but I've had some, in my time, I've gotten to employ some very young people when I was older, and just seeing their grit and potential, and it is a completely different perspective being on the other side of it, I would say.
So when we're hiring new employees, we always say, it doesn't matter to us whether they are 19 or 50 something. Maturity is maturity, and we're not going to make excuses because you're a young age. Just the same way, like, someone can be 50 something and not be mature. And so if you're young, you should still go into it, be confident in what you're bringing to the table, and know that you can be just as good as someone that is much older.
Yeah. And I think letting people know you have the power to make a difference. Your influence changes and increases over time, but make a difference where you can. Make that impact where you can. Yeah. So you guys have some stuff coming up with the business. What is on the docket for, is it 2020? Is it 2021? What do you guys have going on?
So 2020, we've actually launched, one thing we already launched, April 1st, we launched CAT, which is a surplus lines tax calculator. That's for people in our little space, for surplus lines brokers.
Yep.
This thing, we've been in development for about 2 years, and it's come out even better than what I expected. Like, it's so powerful. It's incredible, like what it can do for brokers or surplus lines producers.
Yeah.
So that's out there. We launched that. That was a lot of work, but it's well worth it. And it came out at such a great time,
yeah.
During COVID, and people not having all the resources that they need. Then the other thing that we're launching is our online courses. That's also been something that we've been working for quite a number of years. And it's like we stop and then we get back at it. And now we're finally putting the final touches on it. And I'm so excited. And it's because, we always have clients that can either they're too small, they can't afford our services, mm-hmm. or they get too big. They're with us maybe 3-4 years, and it doesn't make sense anymore to pay for our services when they get so big. They want to train their staff in-house. And they always come to us and they're like, can you just train our staff? And we've always been like, well, we can't. We just can't pull our people to train your staff.
Yep.
So this is a way to consistently train staff. Or for companies that sometimes it's a busy season, right? Like maybe they just had an acquisition and they're really busy trying to do all the affiliations, doing license cancellations for licenses that they don't need. So they just need someone to be trained, and they're going to pull them from another department, maybe the accounting department. Mm-hmm. Now, through these suites of online compliance program, they're able to get consistently trained staff. So we're super excited about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously I'm a huge proponent of online learning. So yeah, I think that's fantastic. And obviously, like, the way that we have to be able to meet people's training needs is rapidly changing. Like, yeah. So you guys are definitely going to be able to fill a need there, as you've done. That's been your story the whole time.
We always got to, like, it's like you just never rest.
Yeah.
And our employees know that about us. That's the same way that when we started our podcast in 2015. Ted was being interviewed by someone because he was the Heart of Texas Workforce Commission's chairman. And so he was being interviewed. He was like, what is this for? And they were like, podcast. He's like, what is a podcast? And lo and behold, we decided to start a podcast. And our employees were like, oh my God, here go the crazy bosses, something new again.
Yep.
But, you know, after a while they get it. They're like, oh, guess what? Such and such has a podcast now. We're like, it's okay. We're just keep being trailblazers.
Yeah. And I think the thing is, like, there are a lot of podcasts. Obviously, you're on mine, you have yours, which I feel like we should definitely mention. I will make sure that there is a link to that in the show notes so people can check it out. But people are going to find the topics that they need to find. I mean, that's the good thing is, like, there's so much information out there now, and people can just easily access it. And what you have to share is obviously different than what I have to share. So it's,
I love podcasts. Yeah. Because it's so niche, right? Like if you want to know about purses, you can find a podcast for that, you know, like if it's so relevant to what you love, and you don't have to like go through a bunch of other stuff to get to what you want to learn about.
Yeah. Do you have like a favorite, like non-professional podcast?
No, everything I listen to is professional, like business lunch, just like everything is, I just don't have a lot of time for like fluff. I just don't, like, even all my books that I read are, you know, motivational, business related books. I just don't have the time.
Yeah. And if you enjoy it, I figure, I mean, I've gotten away from this, but there was at one point that I would play podcasts while I was sleeping. I don't do it anymore, but for a while I did. I was just like, it would like help me relax if I turned on the right podcast. Oh my God. I shouldn't even admit this. I may have to scratch this from the interview. But it was a way for me to just like, I think I did get some information through osmosis, but it was just like, I like to have some sort of background noise on while I was sleeping. And it was either the TV, which was like letting off blue light, or I could have a podcast playing. And so for a few months, I would. That's
actually not a bad idea. I kind of like it.
Everybody's going to start listening to podcasts in their sleep, which I've also become a fan of audiobooks, which I never thought I would do, but I buy the hard copy and I have the audiobook and I go through and I can just kind of like, I can get through more content faster. So it's just, that's kind of been my thing.
Can you do audiobooks like when you work out? Like, are you one of those people? You can?
Yeah.
I can't. Like, I am like such a grunter when I work out. Like I'm sweating and just like all into my workout. I listen to the hardest beats while I'm working out. Yeah. And so I can't learn anything. It's got to be like,
Oh no, I mean, I'll do both, but that last comment was a perfect segue to our final question. Arleen, are you ready?
Oh boy, what you got?
So if you got to play DJ for 5 minutes, you get to pick the song. What are you choosing?
Oh my goodness. Oh man. Now this is supposed to be clean.
Oh, you can pick whatever song you want. I'm not playing it during the show, so it can be whatever you want.
So one song that I kind of like a lot is by Snoop Dogg, and it's "Smile."
Okay.
And the lyrics, you know, I'm sure that you could get the clean version out there, but it's a pretty cool song. Nice beat, nice message.
Yeah.
But I think I'll go with that.
Okay, awesome. At some point, I'm going to make a soundtrack from this podcast of all the amazing songs that people have given me. It certainly has broadened my musical selection horizon, so I will definitely check that song out.
Nice. Very good.
Yes. Well, I am so appreciative of your time, Arleen. This has been great. I do hope either I'm coming to Puerto Rico or we're finding each other at a conference whenever our world starts to look a little bit more.
Come to Puerto Rico.
Yes. I'm voting for the former for sure. Yes. But this has been so great. I wish you and Ted all of the luck with the products that you have coming up. I know you guys are doing tremendous work and helping this industry run a little bit better than it was before your automation was available to all of the fine brokers out there. So thank you so much for your work and for your podcast. And I will make sure that everybody knows how to find you guys.
Thank you, Olivia. Thank you. Thank you for having me. What a pleasure. It's been so much fun.
Yes, absolutely. All right. Well, we will catch up very soon.
Okay.
All right. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.